She sat in rooms full of people and still felt invisible. She smiled for the world but cried in silence. No texts, no calls, no invitations. Just a woman, unseen, unchosen, unfriended. But let me tell you something. Just because nobody clapped for you doesn't mean heaven wasn't watching. Sometimes God isolates who he intends to elevate. Would you like help writing the full speech in that tone? She doesn't just speak to an audience. She bleeds into them. That's what makes her words land like lightning in the hearts of women who have been through fire. This style isn't about pretty speeches, it's about pulling truth from the ashes of personal pain. When she tells a story, it's not polished and rehearsed, it's raw. It's holy ground and heartbreak in the same sentence. You can feel that she's lived through what she's preaching. There's something in the way the pain leaks through her pauses, how her voice shakes just a little when she reaches the memory she thought she buried. But that's the power. She uses her past as a platform, not a prison. She doesn't sugarcoat the journey. When she speaks, the room shifts because people realize they're not alone in their struggle. She says the things most people are too afraid to admit. She talks about insecurity, about feeling unlovable, about wondering if God forgot her address. And when she says it, you know it's not a metaphor, it's her testimony. She tells stories where she's not the hero, but the one who needed saving. And yet, there's strength in that kind of vulnerability. Because when a woman hears her say, "I used to cry myself to sleep wondering if anyone would ever really see me," she doesn't just hear a story, she sees her reflection. She finds a voice for her own pain. Her words are drenched in redemption. Every moment of weakness she shares, she pairs it with a moment of grace. It's never just pain for the sake of pain. It's pain that points to purpose. She'll take a wound and turn it into a weapon. She'll take abandonment and transform it into an altar. That's the secret behind the power. It's not in being perfect, it's in being processed. She lets people see the before and after, and even the in-between. She doesn't rush the transformation. She lets people sit in the tension, because healing doesn't always happen in the shout. Sometimes it happens in the silence, in the trembling voice, in the tear that rolls down mid-sentence when you didn't mean to cry. She invites people into that space, and somehow that space becomes sacred. There's an anointing on her authenticity. You don't feel like you're watching a speaker on a stage. You feel like your big sister just showed up at your lowest moment with a mirror and a reminder that you're still worthy. She doesn't need lights or applause. She doesn't need a crowd to preach. She'd preach the same way to one broken woman in a bathroom stall as she would to a sold-out arena, because it's never been about performance. It's always been about people, real women, real pain, real power. What sets her apart is that she tells the truth people run from. She doesn't just say, "You'll be okay." She says, "I know what it's like to not be okay, and I know what it's like to survive it." And that survival speaks louder than any statistics or success. When she shares her pain, it breaks open a door for someone else to walk through. When she shares her fears, it gives someone else permission to stop pretending they're fearless. There's a divine kind of courage in her transparency. She doesn't just say, "God will fix it." She says, "God found me broken, bleeding, and bitter, and he loved me anyway." That kind of message doesn't just inspire, it rescues, and the pain she speaks from, it's not always past tense. That's the other thing. She doesn't only share stories with a bow on top. Sometimes she'll preach while she's still in the process. She'll talk about wrestling with trust, about doubting her worth, about the days when faith feels like fiction. And still, she keeps showing up. Still, she keeps telling women they can rise, even if their hands are shaking. Because she knows the shaking doesn't disqualify you. It reminds you you're still alive, still moving, still fighting. There's fire in her delivery, but it's not showmanship, it's survival. So when she speaks, it's not just motivation, it's ministry. Her voice doesn't just lift you, it rebuilds you, because she doesn't stand there as someone who made it to the mountaintop and forgot the valley. She brings the valley with her. She brings the shadows and the shame and the sleepless nights. And then she lights a match right in the middle of it and dares you to believe that ashes are not the end. That's why her words stay with people. That's why women cry when they listen, because it's not a sermon, it's a lifeline. When she speaks, it feels like she's sitting right across from you, not from a pulpit, not from a pedestal, but from the same cracked floor you've been crawling on. Her voice isn't loud for the sake of volume, it's full because it carries weight. Her delivery isn't scripted or overly rehearsed. It flows like a conversation you didn't even know you needed, like a deep talk with a sister who sees straight through your smile and reaches for your pain instead. And yet, even in that softness, there's something heavy about her. Words, they don't float in the air, they drop in your chest. She knows how to mix warmth with wisdom. There's nothing cold or distant about how she speaks. It's not theological jargon or abstract phrases. It's real, life language. She'll say things like, "I know what it's like to question whether your name still matters in a world that forgot how to value women like you." And when she says it, she's not performing, she's remembering. Her voice holds the weight of memory. Every word is shaped by experience. She doesn't speak just to be heard. She speaks to be understood, and even more, understand the woman listening. There's an intimacy in the way she delivers truth. She doesn't talk down to people. She talks with them. It's like she's holding your hand while telling you the truth you didn't want to hear but needed to hear. And in her tone, you hear both comfort and confrontation. She's not afraid to say the hard things, but she says them in a way that lets you know they're coming from love. It's like a bomb and a sword wrapped in one voice. You feel safe, even while being stretched. That's what makes her style so disarming. It's vulnerable and powerful at once. She doesn't rush, she lets her words breathe. She knows that some truths need silence after them so they can settle into the bones. She knows when to lean in, when to pause, when to lower her voice just enough to make you lean forward. Because what she's about to say next is going to split something wide open in you. It's not just about what she says, it's how she says it. Her delivery feels like ministry in motion. She might start soft, almost whispering, letting the pain unfold slowly. Then she builds, like a storm gathering power, not to destroy you, but to awaken something in you. Her cadence is intentional. She rides the rhythm of real emotion, not just performance pacing. You can hear when the truth hits her while she's saying it. Sometimes she'll stop mid-sentence, close her eyes, take a breath. And in that moment, the room goes still, because she's not just delivering a message. She is the message. Her life is the sermon. The words are coming from somewhere deep, somewhere that's been broken and rebuilt 100 times. And when she speaks from that place, it doesn't just inspire, it shifts something in the spiritual atmosphere. It makes women sit up straighter, cry harder, and believe deeper, and she makes it feel personal. Even if you're in a crowd, you feel seen. She doesn't speak to the masses. She speaks to the one who's tired, the one who's ashamed, the one who almost didn't show up because the pain was louder than hope. And somehow she finds you in the crowd. Her tone says, "You matter, I see you. I've been you." And that connection, that moment when you feel like she just told your story, it's everything. It makes the listener lean in, not just with their ears, but with their heart. She doesn't hide her emotion. If she's crying, she lets the tears fall. If her voice breaks, she lets it crack. There's no mask, no polished perfection, just truth, raw and holy. Her delivery tells you it's okay to feel everything. It's okay to tremble. It's okay to not have it all together. And somehow, in her honesty, you find strength, because she doesn't try to be strong in the way the world defines strength. She redefines it. She shows that strength is in the surrender, in the softness, in the still showing up when everything in you wants to disappear. Even in her stillness, there's power. She doesn't need theatrics. She can pause for a full 5 seconds after a single sentence, and it'll feel like something sacred just happened. That's the beauty of her conversational style. It carries a spiritual undercurrent. You don't need an organ or a spotlight. You just need her voice, her truth, and the God that breathes through her words, because what she says doesn't just sit in your mind. It lands in your spirit. She's not in a rush to finish. She walks the listener through the moment, allowing space for reflection, for revelation, for healing. She trusts the silence, she respects the process, and in doing so, she gives women permission to process their own stories, their own trauma, their own healing. She doesn't tie everything up in a neat bow. She leaves room for mystery, for questions, for grace, because that's real life, and her style, though gentle, is deeply rooted in truth, The kind of truth that breaks chains, not just gives chills, and even when she ends, she doesn't really end. Her voice echoes, her message lingers, not because of eloquence, but because of depth. You don't leave her words, you carry them. They stay with you in the car ride home, in the quiet nights, in the battles you fight alone. Because her voice becomes a reminder, you're not alone. You're not too broken. You're not forgotten. And that voice, that sacred, conversational, anointed voice, it tells you that even in your silence, you're still worth speaking to. She understands the power of silence, not the kind that signals absence, but the kind that demands attention. When she speaks, she doesn't rush through her words like they're running out of time. She knows some truths need room to breathe, and some wounds need space before they can receive healing. That's why she lets her pauses speak just as loudly as her sentences. Every moment of stillness between her words is purposeful. Holds weight. She knows when to slow down, when to lean back, when to let the silence settle before she speaks again. Because sometimes the moment that breaks someone open isn't in the word, it's in the wait. There's a rhythm to how she speaks, a sacred cadence that respects the emotional journey of the listener. She doesn't just preach to the surface, she digs deep. And when you're digging through pain, you can't move too fast. She speaks like someone who knows what it's like to carry grief in her bones. That's why she stops. That's why she lets the silence fall. Because in that pause, listener begins to feel what's been buried. She creates space for reflection. She opens up a moment where the heart can catch up with the head. She knows that not everything needs to be filled with words. Some moments require stillness, and in those moments she stands, sometimes quiet, sometimes simply staring into the room, as if she's giving each woman space to feel seen. There's something about that silence that reaches farther than a shouted truth ever could. It says, you don't have to hurry through your healing. It says, you are safe here, even in the pause. And that safety unlocks something in the listener. It allows them to breathe deeply, sometimes for the first time in a long time. Her pauses are never accidental. They are crafted like part of the message itself. She might deliver a sentence that hits like thunder, you were never forgotten, and then she lets silence hold that sentence in the room. It hangs there, echoing in the heart of every woman who's ever questioned her worth. That pause is not empty, it's sacred. It's where the shift happens. It's where the heart opens up and receives what the mind wasn't ready to hear. It's in that hush that chains begin to fall. She's mastered the art of the pause because she's mastered the art of listening, not just to people, but to the spirit. She doesn't rush to the next line because she's not performing. She's ministering. She listens for the shift in the room, the moment when the atmosphere changes, and when that moment comes, she lets it sit. She doesn't fight the stillness, she respects it, because she knows that sometimes it's not what you say, it's what you don't say that creates the space for breakthrough. There's a confidence in her quiet. She doesn't fear silence like most speakers do. She knows the world is noisy. People come to her not just to hear something. They come to feel something, and sometimes the most powerful feeling is the one that happens when nothing is said. She'll pause in the middle of a sentence, let the tears build in her eyes, and just wait. In that waiting, the listener starts crying too, not because of what was said, but because of what was felt. That's what makes her style so unforgettable. She's not afraid to let emotion breathe. She uses silence like punctuation. It's how she underlines her message. It's how she says, don't just hear this, hold this. Her pauses are exclamation points, periods, and ellipses all at once, and the way she lingers after saying something difficult. It's not hesitation, it's reverence, it's honoring the weight of the words, it's giving the listener the dignity of time, because truth doesn't always land the first time. Sometimes it needs a moment to settle. Sometimes the pause is the doorway to healing. There's also a certain grace in how she re-enters the moment after the pause. She doesn't crash back in. She eases in, gently guiding the listener to the next truth, like someone leading a wounded friend by the hand. She understands emotional pacing. She knows that too much too fast can shut a heart down, so she gives just enough, then she pauses. She lets the tears fall. She lets the breath return, then she continues. That pacing is spiritual. It's not just communication. It's communion. Sometimes the silence after a powerful sentence feels like a collective prayer. No one speaks, no one moves. It's like everyone is processing the same pain at the same time, and she holds that moment with such sacred care. She doesn't fill it with noise or filler words, she stands in it. Present, poised, powerful, her presence in that pause is a reminder that healing isn't rushed, that real change doesn't come from hype, it comes from honesty, from sitting with the truth long enough to let it do its work. Her pauses also communicate humility. She's not there to impress. She's not rushing to the next applause line. She's letting the spirit work. She's letting the room breathe, and in doing that, she teaches women that silence is not something to fear, it's something to trust. She shows them that they don't have to rush through their own healing just to keep up with someone else's timeline. She models the pace of grace. She also uses silence to reclaim authority. When she stops talking, all eyes stay on her, not because of performance, but because of presence. She doesn't lose the room. She deepens it. The silence isn't awkward. It's full of emotion, full of truth, full of God. That's why her style resonates so deeply. It touches more than ears. It touches the soul. So when she pauses, it's never empty. It's intentional, it's healing, it's holy. Her pauses are filled with presence, power, and permission. Permission for every woman listening to exhale, to feel, to believe again. In those pauses, lives begin to shift, not with noise, not with shouts, but with sacred, still truth. She doesn't come to the stage with a plan to impress you. She comes with a mission to reach you, and she knows the only way to reach a woman who has been overlooked, abandoned, or emotionally drained is to first acknowledge her pain, not gloss over it, not fix it, not throw scriptures at it like bandages on bullet wounds, but to sit with it. She knows there's a woman out there who walks into every room like she's invisible, who wonders if anyone sees her breaking under the weight of being strong for too long. So when she speaks, she meets that woman right where she is, exhausted, disappointed, confused, and she does it without judgment. She doesn't just speak truth, she lives it out loud. Every scar she's carried, every heartbreak she's endured, becomes a doorway to connection, because the woman listening doesn't want a hero. She wants to know that someone else has walked through the fire and came out breathing, that someone else has felt the sting of rejection, the silence of friendships that faded, and the sting of loneliness that doesn't go away just because people are around. She taps into those emotional undercurrents, not with pity, but with power. She doesn't say, "I know how you feel," just to say it. She says it because she remembers. She paints pictures with her words. You don't just hear her. You see what she's saying. You see that woman with the tired eyes trying to act like she's okay. You see her driving home in silence after a day of pretending to be enough. You see the unanswered texts, the girls' nights she was never invited to, the birthdays she spent alone with a slice of cake and a forced smile, and you feel it. She invites you into those images because she knows emotional connection happens when people see themselves in the story. That's how transformation begins. She doesn't shy away from messy topics. She talks about the parts of womanhood we don't post about, the lonely parts, the insecure parts, the part that ache in the middle of the night when nobody's calling and nobody's coming. She talks about broken trust, about friendship wounds that never healed, about seasons of isolation that made her question if she was even lovable. And in doing so, she gives the woman listening permission to feel what she's been denying. She makes it okay to grieve the loss of what never was, to admit, I want connection, and I'm tired of pretending I don't. But even in that raw honesty, she never leaves you in your pain. She walks you through it like a sister who's been there before. Her voice carries compassion, but also conviction. She's gentle, but she doesn't coddle. She will sit with you in the ashes, but she won't let you stay there. She'll look you in the eye with tears in hers and say, you don't have to beg to be chosen. You were already handpicked by God before you were formed. And something in your soul starts to remember who you are, not the girl that begged for belonging, but the woman who is learning to belong to herself first. She builds emotional tension in her delivery like a master storyteller. You don't even realize how deep she's taken you until you're sitting there crying, heart open, passed on the table. And then, just when it starts to feel too heavy, she breaks it with a word of hope. She turns the corner. She says something like, "But baby, what if the isolation wasn't rejection? It was protection." And suddenly everything you've been through starts to look different. She doesn't dismiss your pain. She reframes it. She gives it purpose. She gives it dignity. She teaches you how to hold your past without shame. And the beauty of her emotional connection is that it's not rooted in sympathy. It's rooted in solidarity. She doesn't act like she has it all together. She confesses. She shares her fears, her flaws, her failures, not to shock you, but to show you that healing is possible even when you're still in process. And somehow, that honesty does more than perfection ever could. It reaches past defenses. It goes past the "I'm fine" mask. It gets down to the little girl in every woman who's still wondering if she's enough. She uses emotional truth to break strongholds, not just spiritual ones, but the ones that live in the mind, the lies we've believed for years, the names we've answered to that God never called us. And she does it not by yelling, but by connecting, by saying things like, "I know what it's like to laugh with people and still feel alone," or "You're not too broken to be loved." She puts language to the feelings you couldn't explain. She makes you feel seen, heard, and validated. Three things most women spend their whole lives chasing. And because of that emotional honesty, her words don't just land in the ears. They land in the soul. They stick. They echo long after the moment is over. You'll be driving days later and remember one line she said, and it'll hit you all over again. That's because she's not just performing. She's planting seeds, seeds of identity, seeds of courage, seeds of healing, and those seeds grow in the fertile soil of emotional truth. What makes her style even more powerful is how she invites God into the emotional space without forcing it. She doesn't manipulate you into a moment. She prepares you for one. She gets you to a place of truth and vulnerability, and then she lets God do what only He can do. She'll whisper, "You're not alone in this." God saw every silent moment, every tear, every unanswered prayer. And He's not punishing you. He's preparing you. And suddenly, the loneliness doesn't feel like punishment anymore. It feels like purpose, like maybe the rejection wasn't the end of your story, but the beginning of a new chapter. That's emotional connection at its highest form. It doesn't just comfort, it awakens. It calls the soul back to life. It restores the dignity of women who have lost their voice. And it teaches them that even if they've walked alone, cried alone, healed alone, they were never truly alone. Because someone was always waiting to tell them the truth. You are not forgotten, you are not invisible, and you don't have to chase love to deserve it. When she stands before an audience, she doesn't just speak words. She carries a fire that's not loud for the sake of noise, but burns with purpose. Every sentence she releases is soaked in urgency, as if she knows that someone in that room came in holding on by a thread. She doesn't just raise her voice for effect. She raises it to break chains. There is a divine intensity in her tone that says, "I've been through too much to play it safe with truth." She brings heat because she knows healing rarely happens in the cold, and that passion, it's not performative, it's prophetic. It pierces through the numbness that life has wrapped around too many hearts. Her voice doesn't just rise. It rallies, it pulls women out of complacency, it jolts them awake. She'll say, "You've cried long enough." And you believe her because her conviction doesn't shake. She doesn't just encourage you, she dares you. She dares you to believe again, to try again, to stand up in the middle of a storm and declare, "I still belong to God." And when she says it, it doesn't sound like hype, it sounds like war. Like she's fighting for every woman who forgot how to fight for herself. There's a rhythm to her rise in intensity. She doesn't scream from the start. She builds. She layers her message like bricks, one truth stacked upon another, until you're standing inside a wall of fire that you didn't even realize she was constructing. And just when you think you've caught your breath, she hits you with something that knocks the air out of your lungs, but fills your soul. She might say, "You thought being alone was punishment, but what if God was hiding you?" And suddenly the room shifts. Her words don't just stir emotion, they shift perspective. That's why her style can't be copied, because the power in her voice comes from the pain she's processed, not from a script. She's not afraid to raise the volume when the truth demands it, not because she wants to be heard louder, but because she wants the lies to be silenced. Lies that say you're unworthy, lies that say you're too old, lies that say you'll always be alone. She attacks those lies like they've been tormenting her too. She doesn't ask them to leave, she commands them. That's why her message doesn't just feel motivational, it feels militant. She's not just giving you advice, she's arming you for battle, and she's reminding you that even if you don't feel like a warrior, there's still a warrior inside you. Her passion is contagious. You might come in tired, weary, fed up, but 5 minutes into her message, your spirit starts waking up. You start sitting up straighter. You start hearing your own thoughts say, maybe this isn't the end for me. Maybe there's still something left. She doesn't light a spark just to impress you. She sets you on fire so you never forget how to burn again, because she knows life has a way of extinguishing the flames in strong women, and her job isn't to light your fire for you. It's to remind you that it never went out. When she starts to roar, she's not looking for applause. She's looking for breakthrough. She'll shout, "You are not forgotten." And it's not about drama, it's about deliverance. There's a weight in her voice that makes you realize she's not just talking to a crowd. She's talking to you. That kind of intensity is personal. It reaches the part of you that you thought no one noticed, the part of you that's been walking around invisible. Her fire speaks directly to that place, and it doesn't ask permission to bring healing. It just does. And when she brings the heat, she does it with authority. Not arrogance, not performance, but the kind of authority that only comes from surviving what should have taken her out. That's why her intensity is never intimidating. It's liberating. It's the voice of someone who has buried her own brokenness and still found resurrection on the other side. And when she raises her voice, it's like she's resurrecting something in you too. She shouts because she knows what silence cost her. She shouts because too many women have gone unheard. She shouts because the enemy has shouted lies for too long, and she's here to drown them out. But the most powerful thing about her intensity is that it's deeply rooted. She's not passionate because she's loud. She's passionate because she's anchored. Anchored in truth, anchored in faith, anchored in the belief that no woman is too far gone to rise again. That's why even when she's intense, you feel safe. You don't feel judged. You feel called out of the shadows, called out of survival mode, called back to your identity. And she doesn't do it gently. She does it with fire, because sometimes fire is the only thing strong enough to break the chains we've learned to live with. Her energy is relentless, not chaotic, but consistent. She'll press into a point, keep turning it over, keep adding weight to it until you're no longer just hearing it. You're receiving it. And just when you think she's done, she'll circle back one more time and say, "And let me tell you again, because you didn't believe it the first time." And that repetition doesn't annoy, it awakens, because she knows it takes more than one strike to break a chain. It takes persistence, it takes fire, it takes a voice that refuses to back down just because the crowd got quiet. Even when she's shouting, there's clarity. You don't just hear words, you hear truth, piercing, unapologetic, and necessary. It cuts through your excuses. It exposes the lies. It confronts the fear you've been hiding behind, because her fire isn't meant to consume you. It's meant to refine you, to burn away everything that's not aligned with who God called you to be, and she'll keep bringing that heat until you stop shrinking, until you stop settling, until you finally say enough. Her closing moments are usually the most intense. It's like she's giving you one last push into freedom, one last surge of courage, one last declaration that says, you don't have to walk out of here the same. And by the end, you're not just clapping, you're crying, you're shaking, you're breathing deeper, because something broke, something lifted, and it wasn't just because she shouted. It was because her fire found the place you'd buried your voice. That's what makes her passion powerful. It's not volume, it's vision. It's not noise, it's necessity. She speaks like a woman who knows her words carry weight, and she uses them to break chains, awaken dreams, and remind every woman in the room that her fire still matters. So here you are, May, be still the woman With no friends, still sitting in silence, still wondering if anyone sees you, but now you know you are not forgotten, you are not invisible, you are not weak because you feel lonely, you are strong because you kept going even when no one was cheering. You don't need a crowd to be validated. You don't need applause to be worthy. What you've walked through in isolation was never meant to break you. It was meant to build you. The truth is, God often does his deepest work in hidden places. So don't despise your silence. Don't rush out of your alone season. Instead, rise from it. Rise with clarity. Rise with conviction. Rise with the fire that says, I may have walked through rejection, but I am not rejected. I am chosen. Let your story be proof that a woman who walks alone can still walk in purpose, that solitude can shape power, and that when the world didn't see you, heaven was watching the whole time. Now walk forward, not waiting to be invited, not needing to be accepted, but fully aware that you belong to yourself first and to the one who never left your side. Your table is being prepared, and this time you won't have to beg for a seat. You'll own it.